The flowers still smelled like him. That was the first thing I noticed at my father's funeral. Fresh lilies, his favorite. The scent hung in the air, almost too strong, like it refused to let him go. My brother Landon stood closest to the casket. People lined up to hug him first, to whisper things only he seemed allowed to hear. He nodded calmly, accepting sympathy like he already owned the space, like he had stepped into our father's place before the grave was even filled. Someone behind me whispered, not quietly enough, "Of course the favorite will take over." I kept my face still, but the words landed hard. Favorite. That word had followed us all our lives. Landon glanced toward me then. His smile was small, controlled, the kind winners give spectators after a game already decided. Not cruel, just certain. That certainty unsettled me more than grief itself. As the last prayer ended, our family attorney approached quietly. He spoke with the soft authority people use in hospitals and courtrooms. "The will is being read tonight," he said. "Attendance is mandatory." Landon's smile widened slightly, and for the first time that day, I wondered if my father's death was only the beginning. By evening, the house felt colder than the cemetery. The will reading took place in my father's library. Dark wood shelves, leather chairs, and the faint smell of old paper. Nothing had moved since he died. Except Landon. He sat in my father's chair, not tentatively, fully settled, one ankle over his knee, like the decision had already been made. The attorney opened a thick folder. Landon's confidence grew with each page. Company shares, property holdings, investments. Everything sounded exactly like what everyone expected. Then the attorney paused. "There will be a 90-day transition period," he read slowly, with a governance condition attached. The room shifted. Even the air seemed to tighten. Landon straightened. "That's standard," he said quickly, but his voice had lost a bit of its polish. The attorney continued, "And there is a sealed letter addressed specifically to you." He looked directly at me. Landon's head turned so fast, I heard his chair creak. The confidence didn't vanish, but it cracked just slightly. I accepted the envelope without speaking. It felt heavier than paper should. Landon forced a laugh. "Probably sentimental stuff," he said. But the attorney didn't smile. Neither did I. Something in that letter mattered. I could feel it already. I opened the letter alone, not in the library, not in the house. I sat in my car outside, where I could breathe. My father's handwriting covered the page, steady, careful, unmistakable. It wasn't sentimental. No "I love you" speeches, no soft memories. It read like instructions, almost like a business memo. He wrote about character, about pressure, about how praise can become a cage if you depend on it too much. He wrote about leadership, but not the kind people clap for, the quiet kind that holds things together when nobody notices. Then one line stopped me completely. "Do not trust the first version of the story they tell." No explanation, just that. I read it again and again. It didn't comfort me. It warned me. When I went back inside, Landon was waiting near the doorway. His arms were folded, posture relaxed, but his eyes were sharp. "So?" he asked lightly. I didn't answer, I just held the envelope. He laughed softly. "Cute, but I'm still CEO." The certainty was back in his voice, stronger than before. And suddenly, my father's sentence made terrifying sense. Because stories, especially family stories, aren't always true the first time you hear them. The betrayal didn't take weeks, it took one night. The next morning, I arrived at headquarters expecting normal grief-filled awkwardness. Maybe quiet conversations, maybe space to process. Instead, my access badge failed at the turnstile. Red light, sharp beep, final. I tried again. Same result. The security guard avoided eye contact. That told me everything before he spoke. "Orders from upstairs," he said carefully. "Your clearance is under review." Upstairs meant Landon. I stepped aside and opened my phone. Overnight, Landon had emailed the executive team. "Effective immediately, I'll be making interim decisions to ensure stability." Everyone was copied, except me. That hurt more than losing access. It wasn't just exclusion, it was erasure. Inside the lobby, I saw familiar colleagues glance at me, then quickly away. Some offered tight smiles, others pretended not to notice. The story had already started spreading. I didn't know what version. My father's words echoed again. "Don't trust the first story." Security cleared his throat. "You'll need authorization before entering again." I nodded calmly, but as I walked back outside, one thought settled deep. Landon wasn't grieving, he was positioning. And I had just been moved off the board. That evening, the family meeting felt less like support and more like a courtroom. We gathered in our childhood home. Same furniture, same photographs, but everything felt rearranged emotionally. Landon sat at the head of the table, speaking gently, almost kindly. "She's grieving," he told everyone. "Let's not overwhelm her with business right now." It sounded protective, thoughtful even, but it placed me outside the conversation before I could join it. Relatives nodded. Some looked relieved, others avoided my eyes. Nobody asked what I wanted. I stayed quiet, watching, listening, learning. Then my aunt leaned forward. Her voice was soft, careful. "Maybe you should sign a waiver," she suggested. "Just temporarily. It would reduce pressure." A document appeared, already prepared, not temporary, not harmless. It stripped voting rights, decision authority, even parts of my inheritance influence, all under the language of support. I slid it back untouched. "No," I said simply. Landon's polite smile didn't disappear, but it tightened. "Then," he said quietly, "we'll do this the hard way." And suddenly, the grief in the room turned into something else entirely. Strategy. The waiver sat between us like a quiet trap. It looked harmless at first. Clean paper, simple language, words like support, temporary, family unity. But when I read carefully, the truth showed itself. Signing it meant giving up my voting rights in the company. It meant stepping back from decisions. It even limited my inheritance authority. Temporary, they said, but nothing about it felt temporary. Landon watched me calmly, no pressure in his voice, no anger. That almost made it worse. It was the patience of someone certain he would win eventually. "Just until things settle," he said. I looked around the room. No one met my eyes. Some relatives nodded slowly, as if this was reasonable. My father's words echoed again. "Do not trust the first version of the story they tell." I pushed the document back. "No, just one word." Landon's smile didn't vanish, it hardened. "Then," he said quietly, "we'll do this the hard way." And in that moment, I realized something clearly. This wasn't grief anymore. It was a power struggle. And Landon had already started playing. The shift inside the company happened fast. People who once greeted me warmly now kept conversations short. Some avoided eye contact entirely. Meetings I used to attend suddenly happened without notice. Landon held private sessions with department heads. Promotions were hinted at. Loyalty seemed to matter more than competence now. One afternoon, I overheard two employees near the elevators. "She's unstable," one whispered, "always was." The words stung, but I didn't react. I couldn't afford emotional mistakes. Not now. I focused on observing patterns, behavior, timing. That was when the CFO approached me quietly in the hallway. His voice was low. "Your father left you something," he said. "I don't know if Landon knows yet." My heart skipped. "What kind of something?" He hesitated. "A safe deposit box. Your father accessed it monthly. Only 2 authorized names." I felt a strange mix of fear and hope. "Who are they?" I asked. He met my eyes. "You," he said. And suddenly, the story I thought I understood began shifting again. The bank sat downtown, polished glass and quiet marble floors. Everything about it suggested privacy and importance. The manager greeted me personally. That alone told me this wasn't a normal account. "Your father was very particular," she said gently. "Dual authorization only, 1 key from him, 1 from you." I stared at her. "I never knew." She nodded. "He planned far ahead." Landon had already tried to access it, she explained, but without my authorization, the request was denied. That didn't surprise me, it worried me. We opened the vault together. The metal door swung wide, heavy and final. Inside sat a simple box. No dramatic music, no sudden revelation, just quiet preparation waiting to be discovered. I held the box carefully. It felt heavier than it should. "What if I don't like what's inside?" I asked. The manager smiled slightly. "Preparation rarely feels comfortable at first." As I lifted the lid, one thought repeated in my mind. My father knew something. Something about Landon. Something about the future. And whatever it was, he had trusted me with it. Inside the box, there was no cash, no jewelry, nothing flashy. Instead, there were files, certificates, letters, training programs in finance, compliance, leadership, all paid for years ago, all under my name. Some I remembered attending, others I hadn't even realized he arranged. Then came letters from mentors, executives, advisors, people who had guided me quietly over the years. It wasn't random, it was preparation. My throat tightened as the truth settled in. While Landon received public praise, I had been receiving private training. And then I saw the file labeled Contingency, Landon. My hands hesitated before opening it. The first page held one sentence. If Landon moves fast, he's hiding something. I read it twice, 3 times. It wasn't accusations, it was caution. Suddenly, Landon's urgency made sense. The emails, the waiver, the quiet exclusion. He wasn't just confident, he was afraid, and whatever he feared, my father had anticipated it long before either of us realized. That realization chilled me more than any betrayal so far. The news broke like a storm warning. Our company's biggest partnership, the one everyone said Landon would manage easily, was suddenly under review. That phrase sounded polite, but in business, it meant danger. Landon dismissed it publicly. Routine, he said, normal adjustment. But the contingency file told a different story. My father had predicted this exact vulnerability. Timing, risk factors, even the partner involved. He had seen it coming, and he had prepared me, not Landon, to handle it. Before I could process that fully, my phone rang. Unknown number. I answered cautiously. "This is Adrian," the voice said, "from the partner firm." I recognized the name instantly. "We don't trust Landon," he said bluntly. "We trusted your father, and honestly, we trusted you too." My chest tightened. "We need to talk," he continued. "Privately." I agreed without hesitation. Because if the partnership collapsed, the company might collapse with it. And suddenly, this wasn't just family drama, it was survival. I met Adrian late that night in a quiet restaurant near the river. He chose a corner table, away from the windows, away from attention. "I won't waste your time," he said. "Your brother tried to strong-arm us." I stayed silent. "He implied your father was desperate," Adrian continued. "That the company needed us more than we needed it. He even hinted we'd regret pulling out." My stomach turned. That wasn't leadership. That was arrogance. "He didn't understand your father," I said carefully. Adrian nodded. "Your father never threatened. He listened. That's why we trusted him." He slid his phone across the table. "We have emails, recorded calls. If this goes public, it destroys the company." I didn't touch the phone. Not yet. "I don't want destruction," I said. "Neither do we," Adrian replied. "We want stability. And right now, Landon isn't it." I felt the weight of the moment settle in. "What do you want from me?" I asked. Adrian leaned back. "Leadership, or at least honesty." As I left the restaurant, one thing became clear. Landon wasn't just betraying me. He was rewriting my father's legacy, and I couldn't let that stand. Landon's trap was subtle, almost clever. The next morning I received a calendar alert, a board check-in scheduled for noon. At the same time, Adrian confirmed our follow-up meeting across town. I noticed the overlap too late. By the time I arrived at the boardroom, the meeting was already ending. Landon stood at the front, calm and composed. "Well," he said, glancing at his watch, "this proves my concern." Eyes turned toward me. "She missed another critical meeting," Landon added gently. "Grief can do that." No anger, no accusation, just suggestion. Relatives in the room nodded slowly like the conclusion was obvious. I said nothing. I refused to explain. Later that afternoon, the attorney called. "Your father included a performance clause," he said quietly. "It activates under very specific behavior." "What kind of behavior?" I asked. He paused. "Exactly what Landon is doing now." My pulse quickened. "This clause limits executive power if ethical standards are breached during transition," he continued. "It was designed to protect the company." I closed my eyes briefly. Landon hadn't just misjudged me, he had misjudged our father. And the clock had officially started ticking. The attorney explained everything in detail. Landon could not become full CEO without passing an ethics review and a board vote. 2 safeguards my father had built quietly into the transition. "But Landon's already acting like he's in charge," I said. "Yes," the attorney replied, "and that creates a trail. Unauthorized decisions, manipulated schedules, pressure on staff, all documented." After the call ended, I stepped into the hallway. Landon was waiting. He blocked my path with an easy smile. "What are you hiding?" he asked. "Dad didn't choose you." The words were sharp, but his eyes were searching. "I'm not hiding anything," I said calmly. He leaned closer. "Then why are you so calm?" I held his gaze. "Because panic makes mistakes." That was when I saw it, not confidence but fear. Brief, flashing, gone almost instantly. He stepped aside. "Enjoy pretending," he said. "This ends soon." As I walked away, I understood something important. Landon wasn't confident because he was winning. He was rushing because he was running out of time. And whatever he was trying to bury, My father had already prepared me to uncover it. Landon chose his words carefully when he struck. "You were never his pride," he said one evening, his voice low. "You were his pity project." The sentence landed deep. Old memories surfaced. Being overlooked, praised quietly, never celebrated loudly like him. For a moment, I almost believed him. Then I remembered the letter. "Do not trust the first version of the story they tell." I looked at him steadily. "If you're so sure," I said, "why are you afraid of what Dad left me?" His jaw tightened. "I'm not afraid," he snapped. But his hands betrayed him. They clenched once, then relaxed. That was all I needed. Later that night, I reviewed the contingency file again. My father had predicted emotional attacks, designed to make me doubt myself. He had also written one line underneath: "If he tries to break you personally, he's losing professionally." I closed the folder. Landon wasn't just trying to win the company, he was trying to erase me. And now, I was done staying quiet. The audit began without warning. The board announced a formal review, citing partner concerns and governance issues. Landon pretended to welcome it publicly, smiling for appearances. Privately, he panicked. Employees were pulled into offices. Promises were made. Threats followed. "Just clean the timeline," I heard him say once behind a closed door. I didn't confront him. I documented. Late one night, a senior manager knocked on my door. His face was pale. "I can't do this anymore," he whispered. He handed me a flash drive. Inside were recordings, meetings, instructions. Landon directing staff to adjust records, shift responsibility, rewrite facts. Not illegal enough to scream, but unethical enough to bleed slowly. I organized everything carefully. Dates, times, patterns. And then I saw something worse. Financial transfers, small at first, then larger, routed through a vendor I didn't recognize. A shell. My phone buzzed again. The bank. "There's been an attempt to access the safe deposit box," the manager said, "using your identity." My blood ran cold, because now this wasn't just betrayal, it was identity theft. And Landon had crossed a line he couldn't uncross her. The flash drive sat on my desk like it was alive. I didn't rush. I watched each recording slowly, taking notes. Landon's voice filled the room through my speakers. "Clean the timeline," he told managers. "Shift responsibility. We don't need unnecessary details." He wasn't yelling, he wasn't raging, he was calm. That was worse. This wasn't a mistake, it was strategy. The transfers I found next made my stomach tighten. Payments routed through a vendor I didn't recognize. The amounts weren't huge at first, but they added up. Carefully, quietly. I traced the vendor name. It led to a holding company registered under a family friend, someone who hugged me at the funeral and said, "Your father would be proud." My hands trembled once, but I steadied them. This wasn't just Landon, it was a network. Then my phone rang again. The bank manager's voice was strained. "There's been another attempt to access the safe deposit box. Someone used a copy of your ID." I closed my eyes. Landon wasn't just trying to win. He was trying to erase me, and that meant he was desperate. The bank showed me the forged paperwork. The signature was close to mine, but not perfect. The ID copy was clear, too clear. Someone had scanned my documents. "Security cameras caught him," the manager said quietly. "Your brother?" I nodded slowly. I didn't cry, I didn't shout. I filed a report. Back at the office, Landon acted as if nothing had happened. He moved through meetings with confidence, shaking hands, smiling. But now I saw it. The tight jaw, the rushed decisions, the private phone calls. He wasn't confident, he was cornered. That afternoon I received an official notice from the board. Emergency session. Full attendance required. "Bring everything," the attorney wrote. I gathered the recordings, the vendor transfers, the bank report. As I packed my folder, Landon walked past my office door. He paused. "You really want to do this?" he asked quietly. I met his eyes. "You started it," I said. His smile faded, and for the first time, I saw fear without disguise. The boardroom felt colder than usual. Landon arrived first, polished and composed. He greeted everyone warmly like he had already won. When the meeting began, he spoke before anyone else could. "I understand emotions are high," he said calmly. "But grief causes misunderstandings." He looked at me briefly, softly. "She's hurting." The board members nodded sympathetically. He was setting the stage again, painting me as emotional, unstable. I didn't interrupt. The chair turned toward me. "Do you have concerns you'd like to address?" I stood slowly, my hands were steady. "Yes," I said. I connected my laptop to the screen. The first recording played. Landon's voice filled the room. Clean the timeline. Silence followed. Then I displayed the vendor transfers, the shell account, the forged bank attempt. No accusations, just dates. Proof. Landon's posture shifted slightly. The chair leaned back in his seat. "Mr. Landon," he said quietly, "would you like to explain?" Landon opened his mouth, and for once, he didn't have a smooth answer ready. Landon recovered quickly. He called the recordings contextual. He called the transfers temporary liquidity adjustments. He called the bank incident a misunderstanding. He almost sounded convincing. Almost. Then I played the final file. It was a private call between Landon and the vendor contact. "We move it now," Landon said in the recording, "before she gets curious." The word she echoed in the boardroom. The room shifted. The board chair's face hardened. "Is that your voice?" he asked. Landon hesitated. 1 second too long. "That recording is incomplete," he said sharply. The calm mask cracked. A few board members exchanged looks. The chair folded his hands. "Until further notice," he said, "your interim authority is suspended, effective immediately." The silence felt heavy. Landon stared at me, not angry, not shocked, just calculating. And I realized something terrifying. This wasn't the end. He still believed he could fix it. After the suspension, the board requested a full financial audit. News spread fast inside the company. Employees whispered, investors called. The market reacted. Landon's anger finally showed. "You think you've won?" He hissed at me in the hallway. "You don't understand what you're exposing." I stayed calm. "I understand exactly," I said. That night, the audit team contacted me privately. "There's more," they said. "The vendor transfers connected to older payments that predated Landon's takeover. Payments my father had authorized." My heart dropped. Had my father known? Had he been covering something? Suddenly, the story shifted again. This wasn't just about Landon's greed. It was about something deeper, something hidden. The attorney called me late. "There's a sealed file," he said. "Your father instructed it be opened only if the audit reached this stage." My breath caught. "Bring it to tomorrow's session," he said. As I hung up, one thought echoed louder than anything else. Maybe Landon wasn't just hiding from me. Maybe he was hiding from what Dad left behind. The audit report arrived the next morning. The boardroom was quiet again, but this time the silence felt heavier. No one pretended anymore. The auditors laid out everything clearly. Vendor transfers, forged documents, pressure on staff, attempted access to the vault. But then they revealed something none of us expected. Some of the older transfers had started while my father was still alive. Landon looked up sharply. "See?" he said. "It wasn't just me." The room shifted toward me. I felt it, that brief suspicion. Then the attorney placed a sealed envelope on the table. "This was to be opened only if the audit reached this stage," he said. My hands were steady when I broke the seal. Inside was a letter from my father, short, direct. He admitted he had been quietly paying off a large liability, a legal claim that could have destroyed the company if exposed publicly. He had chosen to handle it privately, and he had warned Landon about it. But he had not authorized the new transfers. The difference was clear. My father had protected the company. Landon had tried to protect himself. And that truth changed everything. The board dismissed everyone except Landon and me. For the first time since the funeral, we were alone without an audience. Landon sat down heavily. "I didn't steal," he said quietly. "I was trying to fix what Dad left." His voice wasn't polished anymore. "He told me about the liability," Landon continued. "He said it would pass, but after he died, investors started asking questions. I panicked. I listened." He rubbed his face with both hands. "You don't know what it's like being the favorite. You're watched, judged, expected to never fail." The anger I carried shifted slightly. Not gone, just complicated. "I wasn't trying to erase you," he said. "I was trying to survive." "But you did try to erase me," I replied calmly. He didn't argue. Silence filled the room. Finally, he looked at me directly. "What happens now?" he asked. That question carried more weight than anything else he had said. Because now, the decision wasn't his. It was mine. The partner executive called again that afternoon. "We'll stay," he said, "if you lead." No hesitation. No conditions beyond stability. The market was watching closely. Investors wanted clarity. Employees wanted direction. The board wanted resolution. I met with them that evening. Landon's interim authority was officially revoked. A criminal referral was discussed but held back. conditional on restitution and cooperation. Then they turned to me. "Will you accept stewardship during the transition?" the chair asked. Stewardship, not ownership, not power. Responsibility. I nodded. But I had one condition. Landon would resign publicly. He would return every unauthorized transfer, and he would step into a supervised advisory role only if the board approved. No secret control, no hidden influence. He listened as I spoke, and for the first time, he didn't interrupt. When he signed the restitution agreement, his hand shook once, not from rage, from surrender. The collapse wasn't dramatic, it was quiet and final. The press briefing was controlled and careful. I announced structural reforms, transparency measures, an internal ethics office, a compliance review. I did not mention Landon's panic, or his fear, or our private conversation. I spoke about legacy. "Our father built this company on trust," I said. "That trust will continue." Landon stood beside me, not smiling, not defiant, just present. After the cameras turned off, the attorney approached quietly. "There's one more instruction," he said. He handed me another sealed envelope. It had my father's handwriting again. This one felt heavier. Inside was a final directive. A trust structure naming me as steward of the company long-term. But it included something else. A scholarship foundation for underprivileged students, and a caregiver support program for employees, something my father had planned quietly. He had not prepared me to control, he had prepared me to protect. And suddenly, the meaning of everything became clear. That evening, Landon and I stood alone in the empty headquarters. The building felt different now. Not tense, just quiet. "I thought being the favorite meant I was chosen," he said softly. "It meant you were tested," I replied. He nodded slowly. "I don't know how to not be the favorite," he admitted. "You start by being accountable," I said. He didn't argue. When I announced the Scholarship Foundation and Caregiver Program publicly, the response was overwhelming. Employees cried. Investors applauded. The market stabilized. The company survived. Not because someone won, but because someone listened. As I locked my office that night, the attorney approached one last time. "There's another file," he said quietly. "Your father hid it from both of you." My heart slowed. "What is it?" I asked. He looked at me carefully. "It's titled, The Third Heir." I stared at him. "Third," I whispered, and in that moment I understood. This wasn't the end of the story. It was only the beginning.